Welcome to the Empire State of Baseball Top 10 Shortstops of 2025 Player Rankings. We are coming at you with our best shortstops for the 2025 season. This year, we got another top 10 list for you guys to go over and discuss. And Rich, you can start us off.
Let's fill out this 10, and we're going to start in the number 10 position, and that is Bo Bichette. Now, Bo Bichette, this is a spot that he seems to be on the down track with. He's coming down from 4 spots last year. He was in our 6th position. If you go back all the way to 2023, where we started our first set of rankings, he was in our number 6 spot then as well. So Bichette took a significant drop here by those standards. Only played in 81 games for the Toronto Blue Jays last year, hit 225, so a 322 slugging percentage, a 598 OPS. This is a guy who once hit 29 home runs. He hit 4 last year, and again, was in limited play. So Bichette, it's not just a performance issue, it's a health issue as well. So Bo is in at our number 10. At number 9, we have Carlos Correa, and as you can tell, there was no change. Correa was in our 9 spot last year. A couple of years ago, he was in our 5 spot, so a little higher ranked years ago. But for Carlos Correa, the Twins shortstop, defensively is still one of the better graded shortstops in the league. Offensively, kind of like Bichette, had a hard time staying healthy last year. Had an all-star campaign, hit 310, had a 905 OPS in limited play. So Correa's offensive metrics keeps him at the tail end of the list, but you want to definitely see a more rounded season for Correa, definitely a more healthy season for Correa coming in 2025. And finally, it's the brand new San Francisco Giant. That is Willy Adames. Willy Adames, who is coming over from the Milwaukee Brewers after hitting 251, 331, 462, an OPS of 794, hit 32 home runs. So Willy Adames, who's yet to make his debut in our rankings list, ranks in at number 8 here. So we'll go around the room and do a little bit more of a deep dive of these 3.
Yeah, I think the most fascinating one of these 3 is Carlos Correa, simply because the range of outcomes that you can get from him. Last year in 86 games was having a career season. Hit 310 with 388 on base percentage, a 905 OPS, and a 152 OPS plus, 14 home runs in just 86 games. But what happened? He does what Correa does best, which is unfortunately get hurt. He can absolutely be a guy that can carry your team when he is healthy. But as you see with the Twins in general, with Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton, injuries are constant over there. He's a fantastic playoff performer. His last series with Minnesota, he had 409 in the playoffs. So the question's going to be, when Carlos Correa is on the field, is he going to be the elite shortstop? The answer is pretty much yes. It's just, how long is he going to be on the field for?
And I'm gonna touch on Bo Bichette here, guys, because I think we have a first in our 3rd year of doing these rankings. We have someone who had a negative WAR last year, a negative 0.3 WAR. We basically should have had Anthony Volpe in this 10 spot. How Bo Bichette makes this list, I don't know. I'm sure the commenters are going to drag us for it, but don't drag me. He didn't make my top 10. Bo Bichette was bad last year, also hurt, but unlike Correa, he was bad when he played. 71 OPS plus, just not a lot of good going on there. A guy on the decline. I think he's probably going to be off our list next year, and I will not regret if I'm wrong, because I won't be.
And unlike Bo Bichette, Willy Adames is coming off his best year of his career. I mean, the guy's got some pop out of that shortstop position. 32 home runs, 112 RBIs for that playoff Brewers team last year. And he got paid for it. 7 years, 182 with the Giants. So let's see if the Giants bought high or if they bought a top 10 shortstop. But we'll see what happens this season.
Rich, you are muted. How embarrassing.
I mean, Joe could have just taken the next 3, but it's fine. With our next 3, Joe, go ahead. What do we got from 7 down to 5?
All right, coming in at number 7, down 4 spots from our rankings last year, is the Philly shortstop Trey Turner. Trey Turner started off the year a little rough. He had an injury, but overall, still a very productive player. Hit 295 with 338 on base percentage and 124 OPS plus, 21 home runs, 62 RBIs, and 19 stolen bases. Turner is still one of those guys who is extremely electric. I think the biggest issue with Trey Turner is the fielding. At a position like shortstop, fielding is a premium. His defensive run save last year was -14. That's a really low number for a top shortstop. But overall, Turner still an offensive weapon. Number 6, Ellie De La Cruz, the young Dominican-born shortstop for the Cincinnati Reds, who is just an absolute StatCast maniac. His numbers are all red. His exit velocity, his sprint speed. Led the league last year with 67 stolen bases, had 25 home runs, but also led the league in caught stealing and strikeouts. A guy who is just incredibly talented, and really has the potential to potentially be number 1 on this list next year. And then after that is Corey Seager at the number 5 spot, down 2 spots from the year before, mainly due to the fact that Corey Seager has a tendency to miss a significant portion of games. Only played 123 games last year. In those 123 games, he had 30 home runs, 278 with 353 on base percentage, a 145 OPS plus. He is a fantastic player when he is healthy, when he's on the field, but he seems to miss about a third of the season every single year. He is a really good fielder, 4 defensive run save last year, and a linchpin in that Texas lineup. But injury concerns have kind of dropped him on this list. Sometimes the best productivity is availability, and something Corey Seager seems to fight just a little bit on this list.
I have to give props to Corey too, because gotta respect the name, obviously. But anyway, too, I mean, even despite the missed time, the guy is like a model of consistency with giving some power at the shortstop position. The last 3 years that he was with the Rangers, he's hit 30 home runs in each of those seasons. And that's despite missing a few games in each of those seasons. So Corey Seager, just consistent power there. He's a top 5 player. Again, with his bat, he could easily be top 3. But shortstop is very, very deep at the top this year. And you're going to see a lot of big names in those top 4 positions coming up. But no knock against Seager. The guy is very consistent with some pop.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about Ellie a little bit here. I know Joe touched on a lot of the potential here. Ellie De La Cruz might have the most electric combination of speed and power and just flair that we have seen in baseball in a long time, frankly. The only thing that's holding him down a little bit is his whiff rate, and he strikes out a decent amount, but he's still a young player. He's someone I could see being in that 1 or 2 spot in the future, because the future is bright in Cincinnati, and he's so much fun to watch, stealing home, bunch of other exciting things that he does on the field. We think he's going to be going up next year, but we have him in the 6th spot for this year.
And I'll touch on Trey Turner. And Trey Turner, despite hitting 295, only played in 121 games last year. It was an all-star game for Turner at 807 OPS. And although in that time frame, of course, those are good numbers. But this is a guy who was once our number 1 shortstop on this very list back in 2023, right after he had signed his multi-year lifetime deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. Trey Turner, if we're going to pull the advanced metrics on him, when it comes to sprint speed, 96th percentile, base running run value, he's in the 88th percentile. The offensive metrics have fallen on Trey Turner if we're really going to go into the advanced stuff here. So, but Trey Turner still placing on our list. He's at number 7. He came down 4 spots this time around. So I think it's going to take a healthy Trey Turner to remain towards the the middle to top of our shortstop list for next year. But Trey Turner could be a candidate next year that falls straight off the list. So we're going to move on to our next three shortstops. And with our next three, we're going to turn it over to Corey Fabs.
Yep. And I mean, look at the names at the top of this list here. All right, we're going to start off with a guy who I still can't believe is on the shortstop list, because I still think of Mookie Betts as an outfielder. Personally, he did play a lot of second base too, but shortstop, he's only played, I think, 81 games or so over the course of his career. But he did play there a bit last year, and he is the projected shortstop this year. But there's no denying Mookie Betts is a phenomenal player and well-deserving of the fourth spot. Gunnar Henderson, the young shortstop for the Orioles, in his second full season, a 9.1 WAR, 37 home runs. I mean, there's a very, very good chance this is going to be the number one shortstop last year. Went up +4 between last year and this year. I think he has a very good shot at cracking the top. But this is a very, very deep position at the top. Looking at number 2, it's Francisco Lindor, and he was the second-ranked shortstop last year and the second-ranked this year. I mean, the guy was in the MVP conversation for the National League. Now, most people didn't actually think he had a shot. We still thought Ohtani was going to be the MVP. But what he did for that Mets team, I mean, he single-handedly helped turn that season around. And if Lindor was, I don't even want to say half the player, if he was 3/4 of the player that he was last year, the Mets wouldn't have even made the playoffs. They wouldn't have even finished 85 wins. They would have been a bottom-feeding team, under 500. He meant a lot to that team. He was my MVP in my eyes, even though it really was Ohtani. And I love to have him in New York. I think he could be the captain for the Mets. Time will tell if that ever happens, but I think he's deserving of the 2 spot.
Just to deep dive, I'm gonna focus on the shortstop in the middle of this who advanced 4 spots on our list, and that is Gunnar Henderson, who recently was named as one of the 3 cover athletes for MLB The Show, along with Ellie De La Cruz, who was also on our list. They added 2 shortstop, and Paul Skeens, who cracked our top 10 starting pitchers list at the number 4 spot back on our last live episode of Empire State of Baseball. But for Gunnar Henderson, I mean, yeah, number 3, but the argument can be made that he could have been in one of the top 2 spots as well. He finished 4th in the MVP voting last year. Again, this is a guy that for the most part, I had thought he was going to be right there with Aaron Judge in conversation for 1 or 1B of the 1A or 1B of the MVP race for the American League. Henderson with the 281, 364, 529 slash line. I had to look back at our shortstop list from a couple of years ago and see where he placed, and had to remember that he did not place as a shortstop 2 years ago. He was a third baseman on our top 10 in the number 10 spot. So boy, has things changed for Gunnar Henderson as far as our ESB rankings go.
I'll talk a little bit here about Mookie Betts, and I think the best compliment you really could pay Mookie Betts is he is just a great baseball player, and obviously he's our number 4 shortstop. But what I mean is, if you look at some of his baseball savant stuff and other things, he's not always incredible. He doesn't have incredible power or incredible speed, but he is a good defender. He's a good hitter. He is extremely versatile. I didn't have him on my shortstop list because I also ranked him in my outfield. I know we were going by roster resource. I just didn't want to believe he was going to be their shortstop to start the season. So I didn't even have him there just because I just don't see him as a shortstop. But that just goes to his real ability of just being so versatile, clutch, doesn't strike out, seems to get the big hit at the right time. So Mookie Betts, whoever, basically almost half the positions we do in these rankings, he would be a top 3 or 4 guy because he is that good.
Yeah, and Lindor gets the number 2 spot. And here's the thing about Francisco Lindor. Yes, you can make the argument that Gunnar Henderson and Corey Seager are more potent offensively. Yes, you can make the conversation that some of these other shortstops are better defensively. But there is no shortstop in the game that is as complete in terms of offense, defense, availability, leadership on the field. Lindor is the complete player that is better than the sum of his individual parts. He had 33 home runs last year, getting 1 stolen base away from a 30-30 season, mostly due to the fact that he hurt his back at the end of the year. He had a phenomenal playoff run. He had the most clutch hits for the Mets, including a home run against the Braves to clinch the playoff spot. He had a home run in the postseason, a grand slam against the Phillies that put the icing on the cake there. Every big time moment the Mets had last year revolved around Francisco Lindor. He is the ultimate guy who he just plays every single day. He plays Gold Glove level defense. He plays Silver Slugger level offense. Even if he's not one of those things on a given year, he's right there in the conversation. And that is why he is the most, in my mind, complete shortstop on this list, even if he's not as good in a particular area as some of the other guys on this list.
I got to say, for those who've been following along with our ESP player rankings, and we thank you so much for doing so, the way the graphic's been broken out before we hit our number ones is the players are done in trios. This might be the best trio graphic that we're going to have throughout this entire player rankings, because holy hell, with Francisco Lindor, Gunnar Henderson, and Mookie Betts, that's some talent right there. And while the argument could be out there for one of these three to crack the number one spot, well, I'm sorry, Mookie, Gunnar, Francisco Lindor, you guys are going to be looking up to the number one. And Thomas, I know you have our number one guy. Who is the number one shortstop in all of baseball heading into the 2025 season?
Number one shortstop, number two player in the AL, Bobby Witt Jr. And look, if you look at his 2024 season, it is everything that you think an MVP would have been. And if it wasn't for Aaron Judge, he would have been. He was basically the best defender. He hit 30 home runs. He is essentially the fastest player in baseball, helped drag a team to the playoffs, granted in a very weak division. But Bobby Witt Jr. is our number one shortstop, and I don't see this changing in the future. Joe, I know you just said that you would take Lindor. You think he would be better. There is literally nothing he does better than Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. is superior in every facet to Francisco Lindor and every other shortstop on this list. He's not just an offensive player, and defensively, base running, he's incredible. He's the number one spot, and he's someone who probably is going to be waiting his turn to get that MVP, as Aaron Judge is probably going to still reign for a couple more years, but he's someone who's going to be stacking MVPs and leading this Royals team for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the crop of talent here is incredible when you look at this top 10 list. But Bobby Witt Jr., who was in our number 10 spot 2 years ago, it improved the course. He moved up just 3 spots. He was our number 4 shortstop last year. Well, Witt, I mean, I could go through all the advanced metrics. This whole freaking Baseball Savant page is just red. So the only things he's bad at, according to Baseball Savant, his chase rate is in the low 25 percentile. His walk rate is in the 51 percentile. Everything else is
he's not going to walk. There's no one else in that lineup. He has to hit. And with that, he won the batting title last year. Yeah. He's incredible.
And imagine how high that average would go if the chase rate wasn't that low, because the guy won the batting title with the Royals. So.
He has to. He can't walk. They're not going to throw. He's not going to walk because they don't throw him. He has to hit in that lineup. There's nothing else. There's no other option. He has to get on base.
And he does.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, there you have it. That's our top 10 list for shortstops. Joe, your thoughts on Bobby Witt as you close things out for our shortstop top 10s?
Yeah, I had him as number one. He's just a fantastic player. He's special. And yes, you're right. He's going to be an MVP sooner rather than later. And he's just going to continue to get better and better. But that will do it for our ESB shortstop rankings. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.